there almost seems like an inbuilt self-destruction mechanism within a treasury company, in the sense that the stockholders voted to liquidate their Bitcoin now at 65 or whatever the fuck we're sitting at right now, at the bottom of a bear market. The only reason you're going to have the majority of people voting to do that is because the voting majority has no idea about this shit.
If the businesses are such good investments, why buy the Bitcoin? And if the Bitcoin outperforms, why buy the business?
Buying cash flowing businesses that have a history, a decade or two or three of proven cash flow, and knowing that instead of being a Bitcoin treasury company pure play that folds during a bear market.
'21 and Mallers are not the only ones having issues here. Last year, Mark Moss, he was appointed as the chief Bitcoin strategist for Satsuma. Well, Satsuma shareholders approved Bitcoin liquidation. They voted to sell the company's Bitcoin, return the cash to investors, and delist from the London Stock Exchange, ending their run as a Bitcoin treasury company after heavy losses. Now, this is, of course, coming, the 21 news and Satsuma are coming at the same time that Lyn Alden is launching Orange Juice. And I've got to wonder how she's currently feeling about the timing of all this, because it seems like all the treasury stuff is just like that. The excitement of the years prior is gone. I don't think many people are, if any, are interested in this right now. And maybe she's going to be looking at it differently. But again, with what I'm seeing in general, trend wise, not so great. So I'm curious. One, if you guys have any thoughts on the Satsuma thing. They didn't have that much corn, but it was like 600, 700.
Oh yeah, it's just like 600. Yeah, I wish I just had like 600 corn sitting around the couch. Same. Jesus.
In the realm of Sailor, obviously, nothing. Even in the realm of 21, nothing. But yeah, I'm curious. Do you guys think that this is done? That this trend is this the equivalent of trying to launch an ICO in like 2018?
I'd be curious to get Walker's thoughts on this, but even before you jump in there, Walker, I just want to tag on to it. I was thinking about this today, and I'd be interested in your perspective. There almost seems like an inbuilt self-destruction mechanism within a treasury company, in the sense that you're trying to offer like a Bitcoin product. It has to be usually a little bit outside the Bitcoin space, or at least a portion of the equity is going to be held by people outside the Bitcoin space. And I don't think like it was the stockholders voted to liquidate their Bitcoin now at 65 or whatever the fuck we're sitting at right now, at the bottom of a bear market. The only reason you're going to have the majority of people voting to do that is because the voting majority has no idea about this shit. And if they did, they probably wouldn't buy the equity. They would just buy the underlying asset. They would just buy the Bitcoin itself.
Yeah.
So I feel
but the people, they are retarded, basically.
The people are retarded. And I feel like the treasury holders, more or less, will always be more retarded with regards to Bitcoin than just the Bitcoin holders. And so at some point in time, they're going to make a dumb decision like selling at the bottom of a bear market. But I don't know, maybe there's something else I'm missing. I think you may have talked to Lyn today too, Walker. I'm curious your thoughts.
I just recorded with Lyn today. And so first of all, I think something that people, like if you haven't looked into what Orange Juice is doing, you can go to orangejuice.com. Yes, they got the domain orangejuice.com, which is pretty badass, honestly.
That probably cost at least a few coins.
Well, I know that it was paid for entirely by the founders' capital, because they were like, we're gonna get this thing. But so first point is, this is not a quote Bitcoin treasury company. They're not trying. They have no plans to go public anytime soon. This isn't a SPAC type deal where they're trying to raise a bunch of hype and then go public and then pump and dump. Basically, they're trying to buy cash flowing, and like you can listen to the episode when it comes out. Lyn will explain it better. But so apologies, Lyn, if I don't get this exactly right. But cash flowing, AI resistant businesses, like real brick and mortar type businesses, like whether it's and this could be any vertical, right? But businesses that are going to be bought for low multiples, not have a ton of growth potential, but have high cash flow. They will divert a portion of that cash flow into buying Bitcoin for the holding company. They are not PE hack and slackers. They are trying to buy businesses that are profitable, real businesses, and then use the cash flow from those businesses to buy Bitcoin and create a treasury. The treasury itself is what creates the growth multiples because Bitcoin's going to go up forever. So it's a fundamentally different play, I think, and I think it actually makes it way more sense than any of these pure play Bitcoin treasury companies that have no business, have no cash flow, have no nothing, and are just basically playing fiat games to be able to raise capital. Like, to me, I think it's a really smart move. If you believe that Bitcoin is going to be successful, which all of us do, most people in the chat do, unless you run BIP 110, then you believe that Bitcoin is going to go up and to the right forever in fiat terms, because fiat's a terrible measuring stick. And you believe that every business will eventually hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet because it's the prudent thing to do to make sure your business stays solvent, right? Also, the Orange Juice will be able to buy Bitcoin when Bitcoin is low instead of trying to just raise capital to buy Bitcoin when Bitcoin is low. They'll be able to buy Bitcoin with free cash flow. Like, this actually, to me, makes a ton more sense. Supporting brick and mortar businesses, or maybe they don't have brick and mortar, but they're at least real businesses that have cash flow, and using that to buy Bitcoin. To me, that's a great value prop. It's also the exact same team from Ego Death Capital who supports like Bitcoin businesses as a venture capital fund. It's Jeff Booth, it's Andy Pitt, Nico Lechuga, and a couple others that I'm probably forgetting. But like, to me, I think this is super bullish. I think every business will eventually hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet because of course you will. It's the prudent thing to do. So to buy a bunch of those businesses that are profitable, that are not trading at a 50x multiple, but are trading at a couple times multiple, and using the proceeds from that free cash flow to buy Bitcoin and use that as a consolidated treasury, I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense personally. And I think it's fundamentally different from all of the Bitcoin treasury company plays that are out there right now.
Yeah, I think that, and we've talked about this over time as well. Not every treasury company is made equally, and if you have a profitable business and you're stuffing that into Bitcoin, the excess or whatever, then yeah, that's great, and that's what everyone talks about. Every business needs Bitcoin, every family, every country. That's the way it should be at the end of the day. And this is what confuses me as an old real estate guy, is how more real estate people aren't doing this. How people aren't going down this road of, hey, I've got my cash flows for my business or whatever's going on, and then I'm putting it into Bitcoin and really leveraging this vertical leveraging of the cash flows and the Bitcoin. And then, you can loan against it. You can do a lot of stuff that maybe the average person isn't doing. But again, someone like Lyn, or there are people out there that can do this. You can raise money. The Burr strategy, people are familiar with it in the real estate world, which is really since 1971, since the money really became debt. That is a strategy. That's the old Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all this stuff. And his rich dad writes them right, and was in Vietnam and says, hey, everything's changed in the world. The dollar is no longer backed by anything. And that's when everything did change. And it's a debt-based society. We're not in an equity-based society anymore. So everything changes until you get back into this world where it's based on equity. So that to me is what's interesting. So hopefully, Lyn's successful, for her sake. I mean, it is what it is. The treasury plays, again, the Mark Moss stuff and all these things going on just based off Bitcoin. Again, I get it when you're doing the numbers and you're crunching the numbers, the financial engineering, you're bombing the village to save the village. Hey, I'll leave that to Nolan Bowerly. I'll leave that to the other people who are going to say, hey, we need to do that to implode the system, whatever. But to me, Lyn, if that's what they're doing and that's what it is, it's the Burr strategy type of thing, that to me makes sense. As a business owner and operator, that's what I would do. I would stuff cash flows into Bitcoin and then just kind of rinse and repeat.
Joe, I want to get your thoughts on there, but I just want to also quickly add, when we're in a bull market, all those numbers pencil. Like every time I'm like, oh, I have a stupid idea during a bull market, it all seems like, okay, if this just continues for 6 more months, and ultimately Bitcoin always wipes you out. But Joe, your thoughts there quick.
Look at Swan a couple years ago.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they tried a lot of things. I don't love the idea, honestly. I'll have to listen to what Lyn said on your show, Walker. I know you will have asked good questions too. So I'm interested in hearing what she says. My instincts tell me this is not going to work, and there's a couple reasons. I'll tell you the reasons I like it first. The reasons I like it is because principally what you see, especially in the United States and Canada, are AI resistant businesses, which by the way is just Lyn saying things that boomers built that they know how to do well, that are not going to be conquered by AI. Everything probably short of prostitution, right? Plumbing, electricians, stuff like that. These guys are not going to get clotted out of business. The problem, the first problem is that a lot of businesses, especially those SMEs, fail when the founder leaves. Because running a plumbing business is not the same as running a Bitcoin treasury business. And so you have to think about that angle first. I want to see them have a couple of successes. Now that is a nice dovetail to my second concern. I think they raised like 40 million or 50 million. What was the number? Do you have the number? 40 or 50 million?
Pull it up.
That's like 3 pretty solid businesses. And I think part of her pitch was that they don't need outside capital. You do need outside capital unless you start to sell the Bitcoin you've accumulated, you sell the businesses, or you find some other way to raise funds to buy more stuff, especially if
40
it
million.
works. Yeah, so like that's
they're trying to buy $1 to $10 million businesses.
So they're really punching down on the chain, which is my third concern that I told you guys, in the back chat, that those small businesses are just not sitting on big sums of money. And so the melting iceberg thesis works really well for someone like Saylor, someone like, Steve, Steve Ballmer, when he was running Microsoft, or Tim Cook at Apple, or whatever. Like these guys have a ton of money. And yeah, if they don't find a way to grow an already like monolithic business, the money bleeds out. There's an inflation problem. They buy short paper. They may not love the short paper or whatever. So like that without having a big treasury, I don't love taking the treasury you have and putting a bunch of it into Bitcoin, because let's face it, the same way that we talk a lot, in our personal lives and on podcasts and stuff about, you don't buy Bitcoin with money you can't afford to lose, right? Because if you need that money sometime to do a repair on the business, you have a legal issue, for example, especially in something like electric, plumbing. I'm using these examples because they fit I'll be honest, they fit my view on this, but I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking about. You need that cash. And that's a difficult thing to kind of, figure out. And then the other problem is that there is like this kind of split, especially at that low level of business. And I don't know what you guys think about this, but if the businesses are such good investments, why buy the Bitcoin? And if the Bitcoin outperforms, why buy the business? Like this is the problem.
Why are they mutually exclusive?
That's
I don't.
the whole point that they're not.
It's not. No, hold on. This is really interesting, because this was. I was going to say this to you guys earlier in the back chat, and I was going to say this a minute ago, and I didn't. Alex Hormozi, right?
Yeah.
Like a high level operator, right? Someone who is ingrained in business, and he has the whole story of like, why don't I just go into? I'm trying to get into real estate. I'm trying to get into crypto. But I'm an unbelievable business operator. That to me is what's interesting. And Alex Hormozi, maybe a Gary Vaynerchuk, someone who then dips their toes and says, hey, we need Bitcoin. Because they're such unbelievable business operators, they don't give a shit about the money they use. It could be the lira. It could be the peso. They don't care. They're like, I'm so good at what I do. That's what's really interesting to me. And that's when it's like the signpost in society, when you have people like that or of that ilk that are like, I can make cash flow no matter what because I'm the greatest salesman. That to me is what's interesting.
Okay. I think I still think there's questions. I will, I'll give you guys that. Maybe they're not mutually exclusive, but I still think there's questions about the acquisition strategy that she has to deploy and about the outside capital. The idea that you can get the businesses too, honestly, like, it's like when you have a house, right? Let's say you have a house and you don't want to stay in your house, right? You're planning on selling your house in 5 years or 10 years. You don't know what your house is worth, and someone comes through and offers you a little more than you thought it was worth. What is the likelihood that you sell at that moment to that person? Isn't there a greater likelihood that if you start approaching these businesses, that they realize they're sitting on something that has some value to what they deem to be like a modern era investment group? And they start thinking about what, no, you don't think? Tell me why.
Because you're missing the fact that this is like the largest, like part of this huge wealth transfer that everybody talks about right now is all of the boomer owned businesses. They need to do something with them. Boomers own the businesses right now that they've been developing, especially these size businesses, for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
I agree with you.
They've been developing these businesses. They either need to, one, pass them on to their heirs, but their heirs might not want them. They majored in underwater basket weaving at some libtard college, and so they want to go work for an NGO and make $300K a year on the taxpayer's dime, right? So like that's maybe not an option. They, in many cases, have had many of the same employees for decades. They don't necessarily want to have private equity come in and like hack and slash their
That's for
business,
sure. I totally
fire
agree
all
with
their
that.
people because they actually have they actually, people give boomers a lot of shit, but boomer business owners have a lot of loyalty to the people that help them build their businesses. This is a fact. So all of this is happening right now. Like there is a massive amount of businesses that people are trying to sell. Why? Because the boomers want liquidity. They want liquidity. And like, I don't know. I personally, again, I think it's a smart move. And I think that if you ultimately this is what I find funny about, and Joy, I'm not saying this about you, just about Bitcoiners broadly, is like, it's like, well, I saw people in the chat being like, this is paper Bitcoin. It's like, bro, they're not even going public. They're not going public anytime soon. This isn't paper Bitcoin. This is people getting companies onto a Bitcoin standard with a consolidated treasury. They've also got plans to basically help these, like many of them are like mom and pop shops, but they make a few mil a year, to help them with the AI transition. And all of these businesses, which are AI resistant, i.e. people that do real shit, are also paradoxically the most or the least, the smallest users of AI in their business. Yep. So there's a huge opportunity there to actually be able to optimize these businesses, whether that be with stupid things like, hey, making sure you get in front of the right people from an SEO perspective, right? Which is so much easier now, like for localizing your marketing, right? I don't know. I think, again, it's a good thing for companies to have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think this model of, again, not going public right now, guys, trying to acquire businesses that are actually productive, that do real things in the real world and bring them onto a Bitcoin standard, I don't know how you can look at that and think it's a bad thing. Now, you can debate whether or not the investment thesis, which I think is what you're doing, Joey, is correct long term.
Yeah.
But like ultimately buying cash flowing businesses that have a history, a decade or two or three of proven cash flow, and knowing that instead of being a Bitcoin treasury company pure play that folds during a bear market because nobody gives a shit, you get to be the buyer in a bear market because you have the free cash flow. And in a bull market, you get to buy more businesses.